I think, Mr. David, you are not being recorded. What is said all about there? Oh, this. Wait, just give me a minute. I'm gonna refresh it.
Okay. I can see you.
Yes. Wait, is it recording already? Yes. Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today, I have my special guest. Well, he is a ghostwriter, book coach for the five New York Times bestseller authors. No other than Mr. David Jar.
That's right.
Welcome.
Hello, Daniel. How you doing? I'm
I'm
excited to help your listeners learn more about ghostwriting and what that means and what it looks like and how it can help authors bring their dreams to reality with writing their books.
Yes, yes, yes. And Mr. David Jar, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. Thank you so much. So, what is a ghostwriter and what role do they play in creating content?
Yeah. So often people want to write a book, but they just don't have the time or they don't know exactly how, but they have an idea, a vision for it. And so what they can do is work with a ghostwriter who is a collaborative writer that works with the author for a fee, not royalties, and ghostwriters don't receive any ownership rights, but they do work for, they provide a service and and work for a fee, working with the author to collaborate on writing their book. So that's it in a nutshell.
So, how does ghostwriting differ from traditional authorship?
Well, the difference is the ghostwriter doesn't get their name on the cover of the book. So let's say you, Daniel, wanted to write a book, but you didn't have the time and didn't know how, and so you would hire someone like me to work with on writing the book. Your name would still be the on the cover as the author. You might recognize me in the acknowledgments in the back of the book if you want. Some people call me their book editor or assistant or researcher. Um, but what would happen is you and I would schedule a series of conversations, kind of like interviews that I would record and then have transcribed. And from that transcription, then I can start to formulate your voice in the written style. And then I can flesh out our ideas in writing so that we can come up with a manuscript that we're both happy with. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So, why do individuals or businesses hire ghostwriters?
Well, the main thing is they just don't really know how. They may know how to write a little bit, memos or reports, but they just not sure how to pull off the exercise of writing a complete book. 60 to 80,000 words, 2 to 300 pages is a big project. So the first thing is they just don't really know how. They don't understand the reader experience and how to create an enjoyable reading experience. The second reason is they just don't have time. Most of my clients are doctors or CEOs, and so they have a full schedule, and so they're running their businesses or their practice, and so all they can afford is an hour a week to the book writing process, and so that's where I get them on the phone in an interview and I record it and work from that transcription. So it's usually they just don't know how, really to write a good book. And not many people do actually know how to write a good book, but a lot of people dream of writing a book. And so having a ghostwriter is someone that will help you make those dreams come true. And then if you don't have time, then obviously the ghostwriter can really accelerate the process for you. For me, typically I'll work with clients and we can have a manuscript done within 3 to 4 months. And then the editing process takes about a month. But after revisions, we can see your book come to life within 6 months. Whereas most people, if they try to do it on their own, it could take years and years before they can actually see their book published.
So, how does a ghostwriter capture the voice and style of their client?
That's a good question. I think it's more of a knack. It's a special skill or a talent. Really, it's more of a talent, and it comes from reading a lot of books, but also writing a lot. I got started early on in the public relations field, and so I was writing quotes for CEOs quite often, and so I had to sort of put myself in their shoes and try to imagine what they would say and how they would say it. And I was in PR for a long time, so I got a sort of a knack for it, kind of imagining what their style is, their pace, their their voice, their authority level. Um, Different things, different sayings they might have, or cliches that they use a lot, and so you just kind of start picking up these clues, and then try to multiply or capitalize, or how would you say that? Try to mimic their voice the best you can in a written style. So it's often different than spoken style. When you hear someone speak, you can kind of get a feel for what their style is going to be, but in writing it's going to be different, and so that's where the collaboration comes in. Working from the transcript, the interview, then we can sort of um, develop the voice through the collaboration.
Collaboration is the key, people. So, how do ghostwriters research topics to ensure accuracy and credibility of the book you are writing?
Yeah, it really starts with the author themselves. Let's say we're doing a health related book. They usually will provide the research studies that will back up their story or their claim. Often they will ask me to do some research to find some studies or secondary research that will support what we're talking about. But typically they'll provide that. They usually Most doctors have access to PubMed and studies that are coming out, research studies that are coming out every day that are being published in peer-reviewed journals. So I'll lean on the author to guide me on what research to include. But the other kinds of research I do provide is related to book titles, book covers, how to find a niche for the author that will work for them, that will be a book that people are searching for, and that will capture their attention as they're scrolling through Amazon or going onto the shelves of their favorite bookstore. And so what I will do is research what other titles are in that market, what is being done well and what's not doing so well in terms of book sales, in terms of the quality of writing. And so then I'll help the author identify some of the keywords we want to include into the title or into the subtitle, and that will position us differently and better than the other books in that category. So that gives you an idea. I'll research the book marketplace, but in terms of the actual content, the author will guide me and lead me on what kind of research we want to look at and include or reference in the book.
So, Mr. David, is it ethical to hire a ghostwriter, and why or why not?
It is. I mean, it's having a ghostwriter is so much more common than people realize. Just about everyone who writes a book has a writer or a writing assistant, and definitely having a editor. So it's very, very common. The reason why it's ethical is because they are paying for the fee and they own the material. The ideas, the concepts, the just about everything is derived from the author. So um, and they are approving the material and they're reviewing the material and they're honestly also contributing to the material in a lot of different ways, from the interview all the way through the writing of it. So it's their material. They're just hiring someone to assist them with developing it and bringing it to life. So it's very common, and it's the author's material and their creative license to hire anyone they need to bring it to life.
Yes, 100% agree. W- How can a ghostwriter, Mr. David, ensure confidentiality for their client?
Well, I will often be asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA.
Hmm.
But typically, what happens is the author wants my help with getting more attention. So having my involvement in the book actually helps them. But if they prefer not to have me listed as a ghostwriter or having any involvement with their book, then that's totally up to them. And then I just have to honor it. It's um, a handshake type agreement. We do have an NDA in some cases, but more often than not, I can't think of one example actually of the 30 or so books that I've done where an author has said, "Hey, I don't want you to tell anyone about this." Um, there are cases that have come up where an author wants me to um, keep it on the down low, as they say, until the book is gotten to a certain place in the development process, because they don't want to feel like they started something and finished it or didn't finish it, and now they have an audience that's waiting for a book that maybe they changed their mind on. So sometimes we'll keep the wraps on the project until we get to the editing phase or the publishing phase, and then they typically want my help with getting attention. So um, yeah, that's normally how it works these days. Having a ghostwriter or a book editor is so common that there's really um, no reason to keep it silent. You want to promote your title as soon as possible so you can get an audience that'll be following you and anticipating the book, so that when it does come out, you have some eager people ready to buy the book.
So, do you think, Mr. David, being ghostwriter will be eliminated by the AI?
No, I don't think so. AI has proven to be a new technology that has been helpful in some areas. I use AI in idea gathering, but the publishers are asking authors now to disclose if they've used AI or not. And so I think the industry is already starting to create um, challenges with authors that are using AI. And I don't think a computer can really replace the human touch. It's just the software is able to gather facts and sort it and put together coherent sentences, and even in different styles. But there's no replacing a personal style. There's no replacing the human touch. So I just don't think AI is going to be replacing a ghostwriter anytime soon, nor is it going to replace the publishing industry, because they've already put in safeguards to prevent AI written material from being published under an author name.
So, Mr. David, what will be your advice for those people out there who want to be a ghostwriter?
Well, Um, if you want to be a ghostwriter, then you need to obviously have a pretty good handle of the English language if you're writing in English, and have some writing experience. I didn't just become a ghostwriter. I had, a degree in journalism. I was a journalism tutor. I was the editor of our school newspaper. And I had a long career in public relations where I was writing materials for others, 25, 30 years or so in public relations. And then I started ghostwriting in 2011. And so it's been, what, 13, 14 years. And I've been fortunate to work with five New York Times bestselling authors, but it didn't start out that way, you know. So it takes experience. Now, if you want to become a ghostwriter, I would say, particularly in the nonfiction field, I would look for someone who has a journalism degree or is comfortable with creative writing, but veers towards nonfiction, which is writing the truth versus fiction, fantasy, and novels. Um, and then getting that first project under your belt is really probably the most critical. And so you may have to discount your services, but do whatever you can to find a client that will hire you, even for a little bit, to write the book, because it does take experience. You know, writing a book is a journey, it's more of a marathon than it is a sprint. And so you want to find someone that will trust you over that 6 to 12 month process, that will work with you on the material together, so that so the author has a manuscript they're proud of. And once you have that first one under your belt, then I think then you can start really saying and telling others and promoting the fact that you are a ghostwriter and or a book editor. So I think you have to have some writing experience. You definitely have to have a lot of skills, because they're hiring you for your writing skills. And so you need to be a good writer. And then getting that first project is probably the first challenge.
Yes, to be a best-selling book. So, Mr. David, what is your short-term and long-term goals in ghostwriting?
Well, yeah, it's short term. It's always about paying the bills. You know, I keep between 4 to 6 clients active every month, but they all cycle in and cycle out. So my short term goal is really on an annual basis, is looking at, you know, who's going to be the next author that I'll work with. Right now, I'm booked until, you know, next spring or so, next summer. So I'll be looking for a new project or two at that time. And so those are my short term goals. Long term, you know, I'm always looking for um, the next great story, you know, and so um, I'm looking for, you know, very famous or well known people that would like to turn to me to help with their book. And so I'd love to be able to increase my fees to a point where I can just do 1 or 2 books a year. Right now, I'm doing 6 to 10 books a year. But that's my choice. I'd rather stay busy and work on and help a lot of people achieve their goals, to amplify their message and get it published. Um, Down the road, I'd really like to slow down the ghostwriting and start working on my own writing and building my own platform, and writing about things that interest me and what I think would interest others. So those are some of my short and long term goals.
So, Mr. David, what are some famous works or projects rumored to involve ghostwriters?
Well, the you know, Spare, Prince Harry's book, you know, obviously had a ghostwriter. I think was paid, you know, close to $500,000 for the ghostwriting of that book. Britney Spears. I don't know if you thought Britney Spears actually wrote her book or not, but she had a ghostwriter. Um, for me, you know, I've been working with a variety of doctors and CEOs and pastors, Christian pastors, over the years. Um, some noteworthy ones, like you might recognize Dr. Oz from the Dr. Oz show, Dr. Daniel Amen with the Amen Clinics, the famous brain doctor, Mark Hyman, Dr. Mark Hyman, the functional medicine pioneer out of Massachusetts, um, Pastor Rick Warren, who wrote the Purpose Driven Life. I worked with him on the book called The Daniel Plan, which became a New York Times best-selling book. Dr. Mike Dow is another best-selling author. who wrote The Brain Fog Fix. Um, I worked with him on the ketamine breakthrough a few years ago. Um, who else? Some of the more recent clients, I'm really excited about Dr. Skylar Hamilton out of Florida. She has a book called Empower Your Child to Heal. I think it's on your screen there.
Yes.
She's fabulous, very intelligent, but very interesting subject. How the mind and our thoughts and emotions can create disease, but it can also heal yourself from disease. So it's all about learning about anxiety and how anxiety can create disease, but you can also, if you learn how to deal with anxiety, heal yourself from disease. Dr. Lee Vanoker, also there on your screen. She's got a book coming out by Bloomsbury Publishing called Never Let Them See You Sweat. She's on TV a lot as a medical analyst for news programs, and she decided to write a book about her own journey being a woman in a man's world, medical field, and all the different stresses and things that came up as she wanted to be on TV and in the media to help people avoid the emergency room, which she's an emergency physician. And so that was just full of all kinds of funny stories and interesting things that she had to go through to get to that point in her career. So she came up with at least 30 ways that science says you can harness stress for success. And she's got a great story. Very, very good sense of humor, too. Funny story. Um,
So, Mr. David, to
yeah.
sum up our episode,
Yeah.
how do ghostwriters adapt to writing for a different formats, such as books, pictures, or blogs?
Well, you have to understand each of those platforms. Each one has a little different style. Book writing is a long form, but broken into chapters. So each chapter has it's almost like a mini book, but it will lead you to the next topic or the next chapter. So you'll see either cliffhangers or content that sort of builds on itself. A blog is a short form, so it's very much one topic or two, but packaged in 500 to 1,000 words, right? A speech is different altogether, and that is something that is outlined with the author and then written, but then the author will practice speaking it out loud and make revisions on the fly. Maybe not on the fly isn't the right word, but make revisions to the script, if you will. So each one is takes a very different approach. Um, Although they all pretty much start with an interview and a brainstorming session of the outline, what we want to cover, what kind of experience we want the reader or listener have, and then kind of decide what topics to include, how long it's going to be, and um, and then come up with some really catchy ideas, either for a title or for chapter titles or just different lines that people be memorable that'll be memorable. um, so each one's a little bit different.
Yes. So, Mr. David Gar, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world and good luck for your goals. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn more, you can go to davidjar.us. And thanks, Daniel, for having me on the show. It's great speaking with you today. Hope you have a great afternoon.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. David Jar because if you support him, more empowering books to come. So, Mr. David, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon. Thank you, Mr. David, for this episode. If you are looking